This is just a quick tutorial showing you how I made this monster eyes animation using the monster eyes video asset from Luma Box, and I'm using this kind of vines house facade that I made with Luma Map. So I'll start again from scratch. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a solid. I can do that here, layer, new, solid. Also I can use Control Y. Grey is fine, well I'll make it black, but any colour will do. So this is going to be our, I'll call it matte, and I'm going to turn off its visibility so I can see my facade again. And now I'm going to, with it selected, also select the pen tool, and I'm just going to mask it into these areas where there are kind of these dark shadowy nooks in the vines where I want the eyes to kind of peer out from. So I'm just using the pen tool to kind of click and drag to describe these shapes. Takes a bit of time. You don't need to be too exact with this because we're going to feather it a bit, and it just doesn't need to be that perfect, so I'm probably being a little bit too careful. Everything with a kind of deep shadow gets a mask. Okay, I think that's about right. So if I were to turn that back on and even to isolate it, you can see that I've just masked the areas that correspond to these kind of deeper shadowy regions. Great, so now I'm going to drag in my monster eyes video file on top of my vines facade. And here are my eyes popping up. So what I'm going to do is give this matte to the monster eyes as a track matte. So I can do that here. I can say matte, or I can use this pick whip and drag it onto the matte. And now, because this is set to alpha, it means that this layer will be visible only where this layer is visible. So now I can see that I've only got eyes in those shadowy regions, and if I set the blend mode to lighten, then we can still see some of the detail through some of these like darker vines and things like that, but the light eyes are also just kind of coming through. So the eyes are currently too big, so I'm going to scale them down. I'm going to go into the selection tool. I'm going to grab a handle here, and I want to constrain the proportions of the scale, so I'm not able to sort of squash and squish the layer. So I'm going to hold shift, and that will constrain the scale and keep it proportional. So I'm just going to bring it down until the eyes are kind of the right sort of size for the gap. So maybe I'll focus on this region down here. Move these just so that I've got some eyes that are sort of positioned in a way that I like. I quite like that actually, that's pretty good. I could, you know, be really careful with this and do it perfectly, but I'll just say that that's good enough. What I'm also going to do is these lines on the mat are quite harsh currently, so it's cutting it off in quite a harsh way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blur or feather all the masks on this matte layer. So I can select one, and then I can use Control A to select all the masks. Then I can use the shortcut MF. That brings up mask feather. It's currently at 0, which is no feathering, which is why it's so harsh. But I could put this on something like 20, which just gives it that sort of softness. You know, so if it were 10, it'd be a bit less feathering, but 20 I think Actually, perhaps that's too much. 10. I'm happy with that now. And then the monster eyes, I am going to mask this just so that these eyes will be the ones that are responsible for sort of populating this bottom right region, but I won't have some eyes willy-nilly sort of round here. Great, so now I'm going to duplicate those monster eyes and make another layer the same. So I'll use Edit, Duplicate. I want to remove this mask. And now let's use these on a different region, for example, up here. That's pretty good. Maybe I will rotate it using the rotate tool. Oh, I really like that. Okay, great. And then similarly, I will make a mask and just cut off some of these overhanging eyes that aren't quite finding their homes. Okay, I'll duplicate that again. And there you go. And I could stagger these slightly so that they start at slightly different times, just for a bit of variety. But now the eyes are peeking through in the shadowy, gloomy areas through my vines.